Last Friday, we spoke about a concept that we're not popular or familiar with, the concept of the year of Jubilee. اسم جديد, Jubilee. And we talked about it in detail. What's a Jubilee, by the way? How many years? 50 years. They counted all the years in 50s and they came to 2,000 years. Abram was born and this was the 40th Jubilee. Look with me, 2,000 years. And then they did some math again and they counted 10 more Jubilees and they found the Exodus took place at the 50th Jubilee. Then they counted another 500 years and they found that the temple was complete at the 60th Jubilee. 500 more years, and this is when the restoration of Jerusalem happened. And then they counted 5 more years and then they found the Christ's birth or Christmas on the 80th Jubilee. And they said, well, since 2,000 years in the middle, and then 2,000 years here, if you add 2 more thousand years, then by the 120th Jubilee, they were expecting the second coming of the Messiah. Of course, that time came and Messiah didn't come. But still, they're still working on some tabulation or some math to judge or gauge roughly when the Jubilee is going to happen, when the Christ coming is coming back according to the year of Jubilee. That was in the book of what? Leviticus. Today, we want to study a new book. And the title of the book is Sifr al-Adad, or the Book of Numbers. And many people asked me, why? The Bible is, why Numbers out of everything else? And my answer to that was simple. It is simply a continuation of what we have been doing. It is simply a continuation of the story that began 2 or 3 years ago when God created Adam and Eve, and the story of Genesis and the fall of man, and then the story of Exodus, and then the story of Leviticus. And now we're going to talk about what happens in the desert Sinai. And Numbers really is not a very good title for this book. You want to know what the catchy title will be? It will be Lost in the Sinai. Another name, Lost in the Bewilderness. Another name, Wandering in the Wilderness. How does that for a Hollywood name or a movie? Wandering in the Wilderness of the Sinai. And let me tell you, we are all living in this wilderness. Their wilderness is like today's wilderness as well. Their time in the Sinai, you and I are also living in the desert. The world is like a desert. You say, how come the world is like a desert? I tell you, everybody's thirsty. Everybody's hungry. Just like people were in the desert. We're always thirsty. Thirsty for love, thirsty for money, thirsty for affection, for relationship. A few are thirsty for God. And I find lots of thirsty people for God in the church. That is why Numbers. Cancel that name. Remove that name from your Bible and title that book, The Lost or the Journey of the Israelites in the Numbers. Look at how the progression of God's Word is. Genesis, the important first book, man was created and man fell. Exodus, man was redeemed by the story of the blood of the Lamb. After man was redeemed, man came out through the Red Sea and went into the Sinai desert. God spoke to man and told him, listen, this is how I want you to worship me. This is how I expect you to pray to me. This is how I want you to approach me. And in the Sinai, people fell down and they made mistakes. And this is what the book of Numbers is all about. The mistakes that people did in the desert. And why is this relevant to you and me? Because we will make the same mistake. We are making the same mistakes. And when we learn from what they did, then maybe we can avoid some of them. And last but not least, The next book is titled the Book of Deuteronomy, where actually the people of God possessed their promised land. What was that name of that land called? What was it called? The promised land, or Canaan, the land that flows with milk and honey. And فتح ودنك معايا كده. This is your life. You see this? This is your life and mine. You say, how come? How come? I don't see my life. I tell you. Genesis, you were born and created, Habibi. And when we were born and created, we fell. We did sins and mistakes, and we fell down. And then Christ redeemed us by his blood. And he bought you, and he bought me. And he brought us to a church in Leviticus where he told us, this is how I want you to worship me. And when you learn about me in the church, I want you to go out of the gates of the church into the world, into the battlefield, into life, into the desert. I love churches where I go and on the doors from the inside, means after church is done and we are walking out, they have this sign above the doors. And the sign reads, welcome to the battlefield. Welcome to the battlefield. You see, you're exiting the church and you're going to the battlefield. Do you realize that your life and mine is a battlefield, as the book of Numbers will tell us? We will see how God dealt with his people when they fell down and the lessons they learned. And you and I are also learning lessons in life. All the way until our Deuteronomy. They went to their promised land. What is my promised land and your promised land? It is the heavenly Jerusalem. That's where we're headed. That is my promised land. Is this part of your agenda? Is this part of your priorities? Do you think about your promised land? If you don't, it's good that you came today. Reminding people of this map that we took before. This is the map of the Sinai. Sinai, you know, beautiful land, nice weather, beaches, umbrella drinks, resorts. It's beautiful land when you go there, right? But at that time, God used this piece of land to teach his people something. They spent 40 years. That's not 1 4. This is 4, what? 0. Look with me on my red marker here, you see? So when they came out of Egypt and they crossed the Red Sea, and here is, by the way, the promised land. It's right there, Canaan, the land of Philistines. You see, if they walk this way, that way, you see that? People walk this way, right under the Mediterranean Sea, which is up here. They walk like this, right? And you will see that it will take you 11 days on camels. How long it will take? 11 days. But the people went into the Sinai and they moved here. See, they went down like this and they came up like that, and then they went down like this and they went down like that and they came down like this, and then eventually they reached their promised land. And it took them, how long? I said 40 years. Look at the way they followed. Instead of going right under the sea, a period of about 10, 12 days at the most. Let's say you want to go to the beach for 1 day, spend some time, make it 2 weeks. But they spent 40 years. Look at their pathway. They were lost in the wilderness. Saddauni Habibi, many of us are lost in our life today. Lost. People, they look they are living, but really they are lost. You say, how do you know? I tell you, because in front of you here is one of them. I was lost like the people. And what brought me back to the right path was the Word of God. And that's why I'm so passionate to talk about it to others. Maybe you too, or who is listening to me, maybe too you feel lost. Maybe you are also looking. And the book of Numbers is all about this red line. You see, our study in the book of Numbers and Deuteronomy, we just follow the path of the red line and see what happened to these people in their time. Maybe it is happening to you and me. I always like to preach and say, when we study the Bible, please zone in on two things. Two things. I want you to find in the lecture, in your reading, and in your answering Hosanna questions, two things. Number one, where is God? Where is God in this? Do I see God? Am I going to hear about God today? We will wait and see. Number two, where are you? Where are you in what you're listening? Where is God and where am I? And believe me, God will speak to you. He will show you where you are and where He is. Let's start with the book of Numbers. People say, why this heavy book? Why did you study Leviticus? Heavy book. Why don't you take a little epistle? Epistle of John, 3 chapters, no problem. Easy pleasy, nice candy stuff. Well, I want to tell you that the Old Testament is very important. People say, let's just start from Jesus and move forward. Why do we have to look back into the Old Testament? It's complex, it's history. It is not relevant. I tell you, you are wrong. It is very relevant to you and me today. To the point that in the New Testament, there is so many references back to the Old Testament. Jesus uses phrases and verses written in the Old Testament a lot. Many times people will come ask him questions and he will say, have you not heard that such and such is said in the Old Testament? Did you not know that such and such is written in the Old Testament? It is written. You remember this past Sunday or a Sunday before when Satan tempted Jesus on the mountain? We call this حد الايه التجربة. يعني we've been hearing about it for 50 years now. I'm 50 years I've been hearing the same sermon every حد التجربة, where Jesus is asked by Satan or tempted, and Jesus always overcomes. By what? By verses from the Old Testament, specifically from the book of Deuteronomy. Those answers he gave were from the book of Deuteronomy. And St. Paul writes this verse for you and me who is wondering, why are you studying the Old Testament? He says, these things that are happening in the book of Numbers, happened to them. Who is them? Who is them? The Israelites, as examples for us. كتر خيرك. He solved the mystery. They were written down, you see that? To warn us who live today. Warn us. يعني فتح عينك. Warn you and me, you who are walking blind into a world full of other blind people. The Bible will open your eyes and clean your heart to understand what is happening. Again, in the book of Romans, it is written, whatever was written in the former days was written for our instruction. For our instruction. So you want to find your instruction at the bank, go ahead. You want to find it with your lawyer, go ahead. You want to find it with your accountant, go ahead. But I want to tell you that a lot of valuable advice is found in the Bible, specifically in the Old Testament. Numbers chapter 1 begins by saying the following words in front of you. The Lord spoke to Moses, فين? In the tent of meeting. فين? In the desert of the Sinai. Three important things I want to highlight from verse number 1. أول حاجة, this whole chapter talks about God speaking. So how can you ignore that? It is God the Father. I know there's no mention of Jesus here, but we believe and our faith is that they are one. Different persons, but they're one in essence. So the Lord spoke to Moses. Number 2, God spoke to Moses in the tent of meeting. That is the tabernacle. We will see a picture of that in a moment. God speaks to us when we come to His house. You see, this is today's tent of meeting. And if I want to be even more further, you and I are today's tent of meeting with God's Spirit living inside of us. But a simple explanation, a simple analogy between their tent of meeting and ours is the church. God will speak to you when you come to see Him in His home. He will speak to you many times at home and elsewhere. But a good portion of people find that God talks to them when they stand before the Lord in awe of His glory and His presence. And their tent of meeting was in the Sinai, or the desert of the Sinai. Same thing like today. We too are living in our desert of the Sinai. And if you think around you there is no desert, I tell you, take a second look. God said to Moses, لو سمحت, take a census. What's census? يعني تعداد. What is census? يعني take a number. Take a number of the whole Israelite people, the whole community, by their clans and families. And so God really was keen to tell people, I want you to know what your big family is. Listing every man by name, one by one. We will come to that in a moment. You and Aaron, who is you? That's Moses. And who is Aaron, by the way, to Moses? His brother. You and Aaron are to count according to the divisions, and we will talk about the divisions or the subdivisions, all men in Israel who are 20 years or more, who are able to serve in the army. Verse 4, one man from each tribe, each of them, head of his family, is to help you. Lesson number 1 from this verse. All the men. We talked about our discussion here, is men more important than women? And we agreed that no, women were not chosen in this census not because they're not important. It is because they are not what? Soldiers. They are not soldiers. Here God is talking to the people of Israel to get ready. You will be attacked. I want all the men who can serve in the army. I want to remind you that today God is looking for men, not gender men, real Christian men, men who will stand for His word, men who can say, no, this is wrong, I am not accepting this. No, doing that this is not the right place for me. This is not the right talk for me. I cannot laugh on this joke. I cannot look on this picture. I will not partake of judging this person. No, we need to learn to be men for Christ, or men for God. I love the fact that our church here has a group for young girls, and they call them Girls for Jesus. It's a catchy name. My daughter joined that. I thought that was fantastic. And I told Juliana, do you understand what that means? She said, yes, Daddy, we are going to stand for Jesus. And we're going to say no to the world. We are Christians. We are a different kind of people. Today, God is telling me the same message and telling us that I want all men. I want the men. Do you know if God came and counted the real men today? The real men. I'm not talking about gender men. A woman can also be a very strong man when it comes to Christ. Will He find any? Number 2, I've underlined the word serve in the army. Did you know that you and I are in a fight? Welcome to the battlefield, I said. The book of Ephesians specifically says that our battle is not with flesh and blood, right? Our battle is with powers and principalities of evil, of darkness. يعني حربنا دي مش, when somebody says something to you, it is not him. It is someone enticing you, wanting you to lose your peace, to lose your anger, or to get angry. Please let us remember that we are in a battlefield. And I don't want people to think that we are in a battlefield just like other, what's the political word here? politically, other faiths who are also in battle. Like we're not in machine gun battle and sword battle and shooting head. We are fighting against Satan and his army. Mind you, we're fighting against three important things. Listen to me. Number one, we're fighting against the world and its desires. And you all know what I'm talking about. We are fighting against the world and what it is offering. And it attracts the eye, it attracts everyone. Number two, we're fighting against our fleshly desires, the desires of the flesh. And number three, we're fighting against Satan. In my mind, those are the three things a Christian is always fighting about. The world and what it's offering, the desires of the human flesh, and Satan and what he throws at you. This is the spiritual war that we are against. Please don't understand that we're fighting against other people or other enemies. Jesus said, love your enemies. We can't say that. We're fighting a spiritual war. Number 2, I want to jump to verse 17. Moses and Aaron, so now they're doing the census, took these men whose names have been specified, and they called the whole community together. The people registered, underlined, their ancestry, ركز معايا, by their clans and families. And men, we talked about men, 20 years or more were listed by name, one by one. أحب أقول لك, and mark yourself, you are important to God by name. I'll say that again. We are important in the eyes of God by name. He knows you by name. Jesus said, even the very hairs of your head are numbered. In John, he said, he calls his own by name. One day the disciples came to Christ and they said, listen, the evil spirits are being cast out by your name. He said, do not be happy that you are doing this, but rather rejoice because your names are written in the book of heaven. Revelation 21 says, no one will enter heaven, only those whose names are written in the Lamb's book of life. أحب أسألك سؤال. Is your name written in that book? Important question. Is my name written in that book? And if not, what can I do? But believe in the work of Christ on the cross. And how can I change my life so I can accept Him and guarantee that my name and my family's name and my children's name and my spouse's name are written in that book? Don't worry about my name, you worry about your name. I worry about my name. Don't worry about my kid, you worry about your own kids. I will worry about my own kids. We need to look into our names being in the book of love. There is more than that. The names were already written from before, but I'm not going to enter into this particular discussion. So number one, by name, your name is important. One by one, you are important. And number three, the other word that's underlined here, the people registered their ancestry by their clans. Do you know your ancestry? Do you know your family? I can tell you, I know your family. We all belong to one family. What family is that? The Christian family. You see, there are people that don't belong to that family. You see, when God looks at the earth, He looks at the whole earth as two things: His people and everybody else. God's people and everybody else. God's family and everybody else. God's clan and everybody else. Which family do you belong to is an important question that we need to ask ourselves. We're still talking about lessons learned from the book of Numbers. We talked about the question, how many tribes there are, and we dissected that there are 13 tribes, and we spoke about the details of that. And I said that there were two special tribes, the tribe of Levi, Lewiyin, Levi, and the tribe of Judah. And by the way, the tribe of Judah is relevant. Why? Why? Jesus comes from the tribe of Judah, and that's why throughout the Old Testament, our eyes always focus on the tribe of Judah. And by the way, when they counted them, they were the biggest number. How much? 74,000 and more. Another one, the rest of the numbers are all in front of you in the Bible, but the tribe of Judah, keep an eye on that tribe. Judah, by the way, was not the eldest son of Jacob. Who was the eldest? Reuben was the eldest. And Reuben is not mentioned even here. You see, the birthright or the firstborn right is not relevant to God. It is other things. It's where the heart is. That's where God is interested in. And number two, just so keep your eyes on these two tribes, the tribe of Judah and the tribe of Levi. Verse 45, see, we jumped all the way to verse 45. Not bad, eh? All the Israelites, 20 years or more, who were able to serve in the army were counted. And I'll talk about this in a moment, but I just want to stop here and tell you 20 years or more, or before we read 20 to what? 50 years. أحلى سنين العمر. God wants the best years. You know why 20 to 50? Because these are the years that you have the health and the energy and the ability to think and achieve and work and progress and build and do things. Those are the fruitful years. If you are still enjoying those 20 to 50 years, I tell you, make sure you involve God in your plan. Use those years to serve Him, to give Him glory. Because we're going to stand before Him. He said, I gave you, Yasser, beautiful 30 years, 20 to 50 years. You were young and strong, energetic, everything. What have you done? Have you just built for yourself? Have you just cared for yourself? Have you just built a name for yourself? What about me? What about the God who's loved you and given you all these? Please, let us invest in those best years of our life. The 20 or 30 to 50 years. And by no means I'm saying that after 50 you're down. Don't get me wrong. There's lots and lots of great apostles and great martyrs in the church who were 50, 60, and 70. Even John the Beloved wrote the book of Revelation. He was above 80 years old. That book that people still look at today was written when John was in exile. He was 80. Years of service never end. And I'm not talking about service. I'm just telling you, really, the best years of our life, give to God. Give to God as a first fruit. The total number was, شايفين الرقم ده? 6,000 plus. Why is this number relevant? Why, oh God, are you interested to put that number in your book? And God says, because I promised and I never let go of my promise. I am faithful. I said, what do you mean, God, you're faithful? He said, you know what? About 500 years before, I told a man, his name was Abraham. I told you, Abraham, you're going to have so many children that if you can count the stars and you can count the sea and the sand on the sea, they will be as much. Do you know when the people of Israel left Egypt and went into the Sinai desert? Do you remember, فاكرين كانوا how many they were? 70. Excellent answer. They were 70, not 70 families. They were 70 people. Look now, in a year, what's their number? 600,000. And God was faithful to His promise. Number 47, the ancestral tribe of the Levites, however, زي ما قلنا, was not counted because the Levites will, what? They're going to serve God. By the way, those 600 people in the desert saw everything. What do you mean everything? I want to tell you. Open your mind with me. Number one, they saw the 10 plagues. 10 plagues before their parents told them about the 10 plagues. Number 2, when they crossed the Red Sea. They went through the Red Sea and the baptism of the Red Sea. They saw the great miracle. Number 3, remember then they had a fight with the Amalekites and they won. Remember when Moses stood, and if Moses put his hand like this, the Israelites will what? Win. And if he puts his hand down, then the Israelites will lose. Those people saw food coming from heaven. What was that called? The manna. They saw a rock open up and bring water from the desert, the rock at Horeb. They saw all these great miracles. Those people experienced what we talked about last time, the Shekinah glory. They saw it. They understood what the Shekinah meant and what it looked like. They saw Moses when he came down from the Mount Sinai and had the 10 commandments. Now let me ask you, these people, they saw everything that I just mentioned. Do you think those 600,000 people made it all the way to the promised land? I want to tell you the answer. The answer is no. They didn't. They did not make it. Only a few of them did. What am I trying to tell you? I'm trying to tell you many people are invited. Many people come to church. Many people see the work of God and the miracles of God. But Habibi, the truth tells us that the door is narrow and the road is narrow and few find it. Few find it. Make sure you and your family من الفيو دول. Please. Your duty is you and your spouse and your children. First and foremost. Next, chapter 2. God counted the people and he found them to be 600,000 plus. 600,000. How are they going to live? Where will they sleep? How will they build their houses and their tents? Are you interested, O God, in how we live here? He said, yes, I am interested. صدقوني. He is interested in your home, where you will live. What kind of condo will you have? What kind of... He is interested in the little details of our lives that sometimes we think God will ignore. I tell you, no, He is interested even in arranging your life, the arrangement at the camp. The second chapter tells us the Lord, again, مين اللي بيكلم? God. We have to pay attention. The Lord said to Moses and Aaron, his brother, the Israelites are to camp around the tent of meeting. Around it. Yani the center of everything is the tent of meeting. Yani the center of everything is the tabernacle. Yani the center of everything is the Holy of Holies. Yani the center of everything is where God lives. The center. Will people to camp all around it. بصوا, each of them under their standard and holding the banners of their family. Again, people, when they read this, they say, non-believers, they say, oh, look, you guys are going to war. You're holding, you're counting the men for the army. You're holding banners, flags. They may be black with writings on them. They may be green. I don't know. You get my drift? But this is not what it is about. These banners are not, we're not going to war. It is just a sign where to be. Just a sign. A banner is just a sign, as we will see in a moment. A banner. You see that? A banner. Yani flag. And today, we, God's people, have a banner, Bardo. What is your banner? I know people who, my banner is, I'm a doctor. That's my banner. That's my title. That's what gives me, this is my identity, is who I am. You know, my white coat, that's my banner. Some people say, no, I'm a Canadian. This is my banner. Some people say, no, it is my last name. That's my banner. It's my family name, my work title, the place I live in, my education, my school. I tell you, Habibi, these are not all the right banners. We have only one banner, Christ. We have only one banner, علامة واحدة, just one thing. It is the cross. And it's not the wooden cross. The cross is important because of who is on the cross. And that is our Christ. Jesus is our banner, not everything else. So look with me. You see the 12 tribes are all around. You see how God said on the east you put 3 tribes. On the south you put 3 tribes. On the north you put 3 tribes. And on the west you put 3. So how many in total? How many? 12 tribes. And by the way, he assigned a leading tribe. So let's say for simplicity, on the east, he said the leading tribe is Judah. Let's say on the north, he said the leading tribe will be Dan. That means the tribe that will put the banner on top. And I'll talk about the banner in a moment. So interesting, from this picture we gather that God arranged his people 12 tribes around the center. And what is in the center, Habibi? It is the tabernacle. The center is the tabernacle. Umal, what about this 13th tribe, number 13, which is called the tribe of Levi? Alum, no, you have a place. You are going to live in the center, right around the tabernacle. So the tribe of Levi, right in the center, and all the other 12 tribes all around. Another picture to show you is this beautiful picture, where the camp is in the middle, and then the tribes are all around. What do you get from this picture here? I can tell you. Say it in Egyptian first. Nizam. Nizam. Yani our God is very organized. Our God is not a God of disorder, but a God of peace. 1 Corinthians says everything should be done in a fitting and in an orderly way. Let me tell you that no tribe chose where to live. They didn't fight and say, oh, I want to stay west, I like to look at the sunset, or let me go to the east because I love to see the morning. No. God chose for them where to stay. They didn't choose where to live. They just obeyed in obedience. Yes, God, we will listen. You see, many times God talks to us and tells you, yes, sir, I want you to move from here to there. I say, no, this is not good. I like it that way. And we insist that we know better. But the tribe we learn from Numbers is to obey what God has chosen for us and not to bicker and be bitter about it. Organization. Is our church organized? I am proud to say that part of SMSV, I find it extremely organized, sometimes even over-organized, everything perfect. And I love that. Our pastors take delight in organizing the church and every part of it. And this is great. Some people will say this is not good. I tell you they are wrong. God is a God of organization. But more importantly, أسألك أنت, are you organized? How organized is your life? And specifically, I ask you about your priorities. Do you organize your priorities صح? What is number one priority for you? And if it is not God and the spiritual status of you and your family, أقول لك أنت غلطان. Organize your priorities صح. Put God always first. Some will even tell you put God number 2 and number 3 and number 4. أقول لك بلاش. Put yourself number 2, but put God number 1 and have your organization and your priorities correct. The 12 tribes around and in the middle, the tabernacle. Look at this, same picture. In the middle is the tabernacle. In the middle is the tabernacle. Another picture, again, I wanted to show you how God is organized. Are you seeing something here that, do you notice anything? Yes, thank you, Albert. Correct answer. Albert is telling us this looks like the cross. He was thinking about the cross. And look, this man is showing this young boy the picture of the camp of God. How beautiful are your dwelling places, O Jacob. That's what David says in his psalm. Beautiful is the dwelling place of God. What is most beautiful is the center of it. You see that center? What is in that center, the tabernacle? أسألك سؤال, what is in the center of your life? أقوله تاني. What is in the center of your life? What is your life revolving about? I can tell you many things, but they may not be the right answer. God is trying to teach us through the book of Numbers. I want to be the center of your life. But God, I have many other things. He said, it's okay, I will take care of these things if you put me in the center. And thank you, God. I want to tell you banners, يعني أعلام, يعني رايات. Banner, this banner. Did you see, look at this if you will with me, the banner of Judah, which was in the east, their banner, Josephus tells us from history, was the lion. اسمع معايا. Okay, what about the banner of Reuben, which is the second leader of the tribes? His banner was a picture of a man. What about Ephraim, which was the leader of the west, the three west tribes? The banner was an ox, and finally Dan was an eagle. Now let me ask you a trick question. It's a trick question, I gotta tell you. Do you see anything in those four pictures? Do they remind you? The four Gospels, correct, perfect answer, perfect answer. And I have them written here in front of me. Did you know that the banner of Mark, or the writing of Mark, was to show that Jesus was a lion, powerful, courageous, where Matthew always speaks about Jesus as a human or a man, where Luke talks about Jesus the servant or the ox, and last but not least, John, the book of John, talks about Jesus as a spirit of God, denoted by the eagle. Fantastic. When I relate what God was putting from far away, from the book of Numbers to the New Testament, I find it really, really amazing. The tent of meeting was set in the middle of the camp.
Quickly, in the next 10 minutes, I will wrap up chapters 3 and 4 together, where God talks about those special people, the people who will live in the middle. You see those little people in the middle, those people around the tabernacle, right here. We said that these are going to be what? These people? They're going to be the Levites. By the way, on the east, Moses and Aaron and the priests would live. And the rest of the Levites will be divided in those three tabernacle in the middle, and then Moses and Aaron on the east, and then the other parts of Levi, the other three families of Levi, the other three sons of Levi will live on the other parts. Let's look at this into meaning. Who is Levi? You can see there, Levi was the son of Jacob. And Jacob married more than one woman. Who is the woman that he loved? What was her name? Rachel. But then when he came to marry, well, we have to give the eldest daughter first. And so he was married to Leah. And Leah, by the way, her eyes, she needed glasses, just like some of us. She had problems with it. Anyway, she had sons, and Levi was their third son, the third of the sons of Jacob from Leah. This Levi. The Lord spoke to Moses. He said, bring the men of the tribe of Levi to the priest Aaron. They, that means the Levi, will help him. They must work at the tent of meeting. So what is the function of the Levi? They are not soldiers. They are not going to the army. They have one job. What is that job? Is to serve God. Serve God in the tent of meeting. By the way, I want to remind you, the golden calf. Do you remember what happened, Fakir? What happened? Moses was very angry. So angry that he broke the 10 commandments. And he shouted at the people and said, are you guys crazy? What are you doing? This is wrong. Listen, if you think what you are doing is wrong, come on this side. Guess which tribe came to that side? They were the tribe of Levi. And Moses told them, I want you to take your swords and go in the camp and get rid of every man and woman. You see how they were worshiping the calf? They were indulging in sexual acts. That's how they worshipped the calf. This is the way of worship to the pagan calf. And they learned this from the Egyptians. That's how they learned how to do this. And so they went and they... So what I'm trying to tell you is the Levi reclaimed their relationship with God. They fixed their problem by what they did in the book of Exodus. And so they chose to be part of who is going to serve in the tabernacle. Our God is the God of second chances. Okay? Our God is the God of second chances. You mess up once, it's okay if you repent and come to Christ and say, I did wrong, I will fix myself. He will say, welcome with open arms. Even more, third chances, 100 chances. He is willing and willing and willing till the very last breath to accept you and take you back, no matter what you've done. Habibi, I would preach and I'll say it again. There is no sin that God will not forgive. Only one sin. Do you know what it is? It is the sin you don't repent from. The only sin that God will not forgive is the sin you don't repent from. You say, I killed, it will be forgiven. I stole, it will be forgiven. I fell into fornication, it will be forgiven. I fell into adultery, it will be forgiven. Everything will be forgiven if you repent. And nothing will be forgiven if we don't repent. The Levites, they understood that principle. And they repented. And they stood for God. And they said, what we're doing is wrong. We want to worship the right God. They repented. And that's why they were worthy to serve God. And Levi had 3 sons, and here they are, Gershon, Merari, and Kohath. And we talked about them at the questions. So the Levites were divided into 3 camps, or 3 families. And God said, now we're in Numbers 4, by the way, in 1 chapter. Count all the men from 30 to 50 years of age who come to serve in the work in the tent of meeting. They were counted and they came back to this number, 8,000, and it's a book of numbers, so the number is relevant. I'll tell you in a moment why. 8,580. Look at this, 30 to 50 years. أحلى سنين العمر, the best years. Give the best if you are in that bracket, 20 or 30 to 50 years, make room for God. Say, God, I want to serve you with the health you've given me, with the wealth you've given me, with the knowledge you've given me, with whatever God has given you, with the talent has given you. Find a way to work in His tent of meeting. Shatim, Gershon, Merari, and Kohath. And God said, well, I'm going to divide them. They are going to do the work of the tabernacle. Let's look with me the tabernacle, what it looks like. It has posts, right? Wooden posts. And it has furniture inside of it. We talked about that in detail. So God, in His wisdom, He divided the work between the three people. He said the people of Gershon, or the Gershonites, they are going to live at the west part. And look with me, what is their duty? Is the tabernacle and tent covering. You can see the picture, the little man there, the cartoon, looking after the curtains, the coverings of the curtains. And the Kohathites, what is their job? Oh, they did something very elegant. Like the altar for basin for washing, they were responsible for all these furnitures, to move them. Because they will be moving, and we're going to hear them moving time and again in the book of Numbers. What about the last group? The Merarites, the Meratites. Well, they were to carry the wooden logs, the pillars, the sockets on their back. حاجة غريبة قوي. That is very strange. يعني the duty of the Kohathites to carry the furniture. حاجة شيك قوي. Very elegant. The duty of the Gershonites was to carry the curtain. And finally, the Merarites, they are to carry the wooden pillars and the logs. Who decided this commitment? God chose it. God chose which people will do what. Now, in the service in the church, God also chooses what to do. You see, who is taking the heaviest work out of it? Who should complete? If I tell you, it's the people at the very left or to your right. They will carry the wooden logs. That's a heavy work. Why? I want to carry the light curtains. That's a nice job. Nice, you know. It is light, it's nice. I can cover myself from the sun or if it rains. Or maybe I want to be important and feel great and carry the golden furniture. They didn't fight. Why do we fight at the church all the time? Not only do we fight, I want this and I want that. We fight not to help one another. Lee, why is it in the service of the church I see people bickering and fighting? Can you please teach me how to know? I won't teach you, I'm busy. And I want to keep all the glory to myself, all the knowledge to myself. Lee, why? What is this for? You know there will come a day only you would go down to the grave. لا تاخذ your money, ولا your wealth, ولا your accomplishments, nothing. You know what will go with you up to heaven? It is the love you've given other people. It is the help you've given to other people. It is that time that you spent with someone who nobody cares about. It is that time when you spent praying for someone that nobody's praying for. This is your investment in heaven. The time you spent with God and the time you spent loving and helping the other people. The last chapter, chapter 5. After God told the people, this is how you're going to live and this is how you are being arranged, I want to tell you about things that will defile you. What is it that will defile me, O God? Number one. Look, number one, up there. I want you to remove the lepers and those with not discharge, like sexual discharge. We talked about that in the book of Leviticus. And those who are unclean because they have have touched or seen a dead person. Do you remember the story of the Samaritan? When Jesus said that there was a man who was beaten and he fell down, and then a priest and a Levi came by and they had to cross the other way. They can't touch a dead person, or so they thought that he was dead. It will defile them. God is not against the lepers. There is spiritual meaning. Don't tell me I'm a sinner. But I am. I can't feel it. Same thing with leprosy. It spreads inside of you and even infects other people around you. And so does sin. I always tell my children, if you get 10 great apples and you put one bad apple in the middle, what do you think? The 10 good apples will make that bad apple better? Oh, like that. The one bad apple is going to infect the rest. God wants to tell us from number one here, out with the sin in your life. Especially the sin that is showing to the outside, those with the discharge. You see, some of us are arrogant. They are sinful. They are sinful and proud. You get what I'm trying to say? Proud to be sinful. Great colors, and they say, these are my colors. I'm proud of my sin. God here says, no, out with the lepers, out with even being unclean because of a dead person. Don't touch dead people. Do you know that in today's Jewish communities, my friends, I work with them, the Levites that come from the clan of Aaron, they're special Levites. They can be the priests. Did you know that your friends and mine that have the last name Cohen, C-O-H-E-N. Do you have friends with that last name? Cohen, right? Number one, I want you to know that Cohen is one of the Levi. Not only a Levi, a very special Levi. He comes from the tribe of Aaron, the priest. That's very high. You see, when there's a high reading in the synagogue, only the Cohens are allowed to read it. By the way, Cohen is in our Egyptian language what? Kahen, priest. That's it. Did you believe that our Kahen is their Cohen? That's how they say it, Cohen. So they're very. And if a Cohen is not available in the congregation to read, the second to him would come up to read. Who would that be? One of the Levites or the Levites. Why I'm sharing you with this story? If a Cohen goes to a funeral, he's not allowed to be in the room with the dead body. Those don't be unclean because of a dead person. Don't come and hear a dead person. They have to have a special room in the funeral home where they can sit away. That's their understanding of this. What does my church tell me? My church tells us that this spiritually means do not touch dead people. Do not have relationship with dead people. What does that mean? I tell you, there's a lot of dead people outside. A lot of people who are supposedly alive, but in the eyes of God, they are not alive. They are dead. They love and living in sin till the very end. Don't associate with them specifically. Don't befriend them and mingle with them. And more specifically, don't intermarry and marry with them. God, we cannot be like that. You want to eat, there's many ways to evangelize Christ, but not by marriage. There is no evangelism by marriage. Don't do it. You deal with everyone at your workplace and you love everyone, but close friends, we have to be careful. We have to be set apart. You know, the meaning of the word holy is set apart. That's number one. Number two, what's the ma'ayah? That's God's saying. If you want to keep the camp holy, number one, move away the sinners and try to be clean. And don't intermingle and associate closely with people who are living in sin. because sin is infectious. Number two, if you do something wrong, you must, what's that word in red? Confess. How is your confession life? How is your confession life? Do you spend time with your pastor? You have to fix the problem. Fix the problem. You go back to the man, the family, the poor, the rich, the colleague, whatever it is that you stole $100, and you say, here's your $100. And then you go home and you think you've done well. The Word of God says, no, that's not enough still. You have to pay, remember that word, we talked about it before, restitution. The damage, that $100, the man wanted to feed his children. His children, for 3 days, they haven't eaten because you took their $100. Giving it back is not going to fix the problem completely. You have to pay for the damage. And God said the damage, in His opinion, is a fifth. So the $100 have to go back how much? $120. So you repent, you confess, and you pay restitution. By the way, you have to go and bring an atonement. And we talked about the atonement, meaning you have to have Christ and His body and blood inside of you.
Hosanna Bible Study Group meets every Friday, 7:30 p.m. till 9:30 p.m. at SMSV Church, 3300 Highway 7 East, Markham. The website is hosannabiblestudy.com, where you can sign up for weekly emails and you will get emails about upcoming lecture and the questions and everything else.